All right, everybody. Fuck. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. How do I fix this shit? So for context, everybody, I'm streaming on not my usual laptop because my usual laptop is having an issue. And as you can see, it is not yet resolved. Can you guys hear me at least? Can you guys hear me? Let's see what we can do about this. Okay, hold on, hold on. Let me just do one thing at a time. Uh, this was working earlier. Did a test stream. Hold on. Fix mic? What do you mean fix mic? Testing, testing. Shouldn't you guys be able to hear me? Hello, hello? Hold on, hold on, hold on. Can you hear me? Okay, okay. Um, okay, you guys gotta bear with me for a second here. I'm thinking I might have to restart this. My laptop is basically fucked at the moment. So, I'm having to use the other shitty laptop while I figure out what to do with the good laptop. Um, might just switch to desktop camera. Yeah, I might just switch to desktop camera for a second. Um, the fuck? Okay. Okay. Here, let's do this. Let's do this. Okay. We got this for the moment, but I can get it to the better one. I can get it to the better one. I had it a second ago. I had it a second ago. All right. Let's see. Let's see. So you guys can hear me now. You guys can see me now, right? You guys can see me. Um, Say yes if you can see me. Yeah, fix audio. It's quiet. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, 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 hello. Okay, okay. Here. We might have to go do some drastic things. Testing, testing. Hello, 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 hello. Testing, 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 testing. Testing, 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 testing. Hello, hello. Oh, too far. All right. How about this? Is this maybe a little bit better? This might be good. How about that? Okay, so we fix that. It's just one thing at a time. Okay, that should be better, right? That should be better. On earbuds, I'm only coming through on the left side. I think I know how to fix that, actually. I think I know how to fix that. Hold on. Uh, it's something about. Okay, there. Okay. How about now? Did I fix it? I might have fixed it. I think that should help. That should help to some degree. Okay, you guys got the shitty audio for the moment, but I want to give you guys good audio. I feel like you guys deserve the good audio. So let's see if we can make that happen. Let's see if we can make that happen. Hold on. I think we can do it. I think I can give you guys everything you deserve. Um, this should be doable. It was just working, right? It's just working. Cause hold on. Testing, testing. I don't want to have to do the shitty audio. Alright. But we might have to do the shitty audio. Audio is briefly back. This does not count as late. We're not counting this as late. We're not counting this as late. This never, no. Under no circumstances does this count as late. The whole point of me doing this struggle is to avoid getting late points. So this is just what we deal with. This is just the way we got to deal with it. Let me try one more thing for audio. If that doesn't work, then we're doing the shitty mic. Here, let me try one more thing for audio. Okay, that should be in. Testing, testing. Okay, hello, hello, hello. Okay. This is step two. This is step two. All right. All right. Hello, hello. Then we're going to try step three. All right, well, we got one more step. One more step in between. Let's just make myself a little bit bigger. Okay, we got that. I'm going to try one more thing. One more thing here. All right? Just one more thing. Otherwise, we go with the shitty audio. I shouldn't say the shitty audio. I should just say challenged audio. Okay. Okay. Oh, yes! Did I do it? Hold on.
Did I do it? Do you guys have good audio right now? Is everything working in sync? Is everything working? Is this good? Same audio? No, there's no way. There's no way. There's no way. This is bearable audio, not preferred. Okay, good stuff. All right, everybody. I think I I am personally, I know you guys are probably a little bit upset. That's okay. Wait, hold on. How about now? No, it's probably too quiet. How about now? Probably a little bit too quiet. And there is the Goldilocks spot. All right. All right, everybody. Only left ear. We can fix that. Although last time I think that's what got us into this situation in the first place. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see if we can. Let's see if we can get both ears. All right. All right. I think we got both ears. All right, and everything's working, and the camera's working, and the audio's working. All right, good shit. All right, we got a fully functioning stream again. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. I know people are probably a little bit upset, but I would like to take those emotions, those negative emotions, and turn them into positive ones because I'm personally feeling pretty good about how that shook out. Because if you just think back to 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe 1 year ago, right? Can you imagine me back then troubleshooting all of this on stream in the flow of things without having to stop and restart the whole thing? I think that this is a lot of growth. I think this is a lot of growth. I feel like I was I think that showcased a lot of growth in my opinion. I just don't imagine my past self being able to manage this in this scenario. For future context, so what's happened is basically my good laptop has stopped functioning for some reason. It gets to the blue screen, the opening screen of like your PC, blah blah blah. It says your PC can't start correctly because of some bullshit. I need to take it to somebody to fix it. So I'll be doing that tomorrow. So by Friday it should be good. Worst case by Monday, but by Friday should be good. In the meantime, this is what we got. This is what we got for today's stream. So again, keep in mind, I'm streaming on a laptop that is not built to stream. This is like a laptop. This is like a shitty laptop that they probably, I don't even know if they make this model anymore. I don't know. This is not a good laptop. I'll just say that. Not a good laptop. Bro moving like the Infinity Castle flashback. Is it very laggy? I think I'm moving fine. Oh shoot, it's a little bit of lag, but that's okay. That's okay. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. I'm increasingly becoming optimistic that Shanks will live, like a tale of two cities, where a twin dies in the character's place so the other can live. Oh man, you spoiled Tale of Two Cities for probably all of us. Who here had read Tale of Two Cities? Who here had read that? I had not read that. I still think Shanks will die. I do think he'll fight Shamrock. I think Shamrock is made to fight him. There's one last thing about all this I'll add. It's just that I don't know if you guys can tell from my voice or not. That's not the mic. It's just I'm a little bit under the weather. A little bit under the weather, so my throat's not the best right now. So just bear with that, please. Never heard of Tale of Two Cities, huh? Where twin dies in the character's place so the other can live. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that. I don't know if Oda's read A Tale of Two Cities. I don't know if Oda's going around reading that Charles Dickens books and stuff. All right. Elijah Petty says A Tale of Two Cities is a classic. Shame on you for not reading it. That's fair, but there are other classics that I haven't read. Henchme976 says, damn intellectuals and their high literature. I only read brain rot. So the thing is, so Tale of Two Cities, that's Charles Dickens, right? Am I wrong, or was Charles Dickens considered just like pulp fiction, like pop fiction and stuff back in the day? Was Charles Dickens considered high literature? Dickens is taught in most high schools. Really? We were never taught Charles Dickens. Maybe there's a Charles Dickens book that we were taught that I just didn't read. Charles Dickens books. We never read Tale of Two Cities. I know that. A Christmas Carol. Oh, Great Expectations. Yeah, that's like an important one. David Copperfield. I know The Magician, but not the book it's based off of. Is Tale of Two Cities not? Oh, I guess I'm stupid. I thought Charles Dickens wrote A Tale of Two Cities. Damn. Tale of Two Cities. It is by Charles Dickens. I wonder why it didn't show up when I looked up Charles Dickens. We could read the Wikipedia summary, but I'm not going to do that. We already know what happens at the end. Okay. Yeah, let's get the stream likes up because the stream is up and running. TomTom says Morj, he was considered high literature. Also, he wrote new novels. He'd release each chapter in the newspaper. People read chapter to chapter. People read chapter to chapter like we do with manga, lol. Oh, that's actually really cool. Shit. I think manga culture is one of the coolest things that exists. Um, in terms of like how fiction can be released. Like it's just really like it's the same way that you know how people complain that like when Netflix releases a show um all in one go, right? It kills the hype for it because there's just more hype inherently when there's a week to week format. So we say that because we already got used to TV always being like that, where it's like week to week. That's how you're getting it, right? And then Netflix introduced the concept of just like binging it all in one go, and people are like, something about this just kind of ruins it. So the funny thing is because books and like literature and like long running stories, those were generally always released. You know, you get a single book, right? Um, Maybe it like releasing a single book is the equivalent of releasing like a full season instead of chapter to chapter, right? It never occurred to us that it could be like obviously in the past it occurred to us, but I'm saying like most people living to get today don't think like, oh, I would love for books to be released like weekly chapter to chapter, you know? All right, we got to do this method. I'm sorry, y'all, but I just don't think that that mic is going to be reliable for this stream. Let me move a little closer so you guys can hear me better. Um, so what was I saying? Law doing his silent hacks again. I think it's fucked up that Law just has Corzone's fruit inside his fruit. Also, let's get stream likes up to 50 real quick. Let's get stream likes up to 50. Gabriel Rodriguez says the fact he never reads chat is cooking him this time. I read chat. It's just at intervals. I can't be. Once I'm going on a tangent, I need to feel the freedom to be able to go on that tangent. You know what I mean? Um, Zoom meeting audio. It's just pretend we're in a Zoom meeting. We're on a Zoom call together. Gustav says, does anyone know if becoming a Yonko member lets you also send a message? Yeah. You can become a Yonko member and then send a message immediately after that, as far as I know. If that doesn't work for you, then just I'll just catch your message in chat. Spamming for the win. Hey, spam when it's something important, but not when it's not something important. Does that make sense? Also, let's get stream up to 50 real quick. Sorry. Daily reminder that the sole reason Morj ended up watching Mob Psycho is because I spam chat. That's not a good reason to spam. But I will say that with Mob Psycho, you guys got me to watch one clip. That's what did it. You guys got me to watch a clip um, that um, it was the clip of the team fight. I don't need to go into more spoilers than that, but it was the clip of the team fight. That team fight was pretty mind blowing. That got me to watch. That definitely got me to watch. Um, Tom trying to take the full credit. It was me that got you to. I think you might have been a driving force, but I think a lot of people in chat were telling me to watch Mob Psycho. The thing I was talking about when I was muted was JoJo's Part 7 coming out on Netflix. Um, So my thing is that I view weekly releases as better for the culture. Like it's definitely better for the culture, and if you want the show to like if you want to feel a sense of community with the show, right? Like if you want to feel a sense of like, oh, like get to watch something and then see everybody's reactions and discourse online, if you really care about that. Um, but if you kind of just want to, if I'm looking at it from my own personal viewing experience, then I would always rather binge, you know? I would always rather binge. It's just more fun. Like, if I have the option, I'm always going to just binge a series. I'm not going to be like, I'd rather wait like week after week after week for a new episode. So for me, I'm not going to mind if JoJo's Part 7 is released all at once by Netflix. I'm going to be cool with that. I just want the animation to be better than Part 6. Um, on the flip side, Chainsaw Man, I would hate if Chainsaw Man was released all in one go because I definitely want to see for season 2 all of the reactions to episodes. Produces Morj, any update on the Wano analysis? No update, but I'm going to try and get it done before the end of the year. Part 7 is going to suck. Sucks as Ace the comeback. It's not about release schedule. If Netflix is involved with any anime, it's just more likely to suck. Does Netflix have any winners? Does it have any anime that were successful? That were good? Tom Tom says, Morge, please watch Kaiji or I'll cry. Nah, I don't think so. Maybe at some point. Ender Anami says, Morge, speaking of Chainsaw Man, we want a Chainsaw Man stream? Maybe. Because Chainsaw Man's getting really good in part 2. I think part 2's been shakier than part 1 for sure. But I would like to see how it all comes together. And the climax that feels like it's beginning right now feels very, very like the anticipation on my end like is really, really high. I'm very, very excited to see where this goes. This it feels like apocalyptic. Um, Dungeon Meshi. Oh, Cyberpunk was Netflix? There's no way. There's no way. Cyberpunk was Netflix. Really? Cyberpunk's beautiful visually. Ace Becomix says Netflix is good titles, but not enough for the amount they invest in anime. I think the fucked part about what Netflix does is that it how do I say this? The fucked part about Netflix's like seizing of all these anime titles is that I feel like it's got in its collection a lot of the best action anime that in somebody else's hands would be a lot better, right? So Baki, for example, I don't actually dislike Netflix's Baki. It can be fun to watch in its own weird way, but it's just like when it gets to the actual action part of it, it's shocking how little movement. Like it's actually damn creative how they manage to do important Baki fights while not actually showing much movement, but giving the illusion of movement a lot. Like it's very like even some of the biggest fights in the series, like they'll cut to a shot where like a punch is already connected or something and you have like moving lines like they give a lot of feel of impact and things like that, but then you actually look carefully and not they're not actually animating movement. There's not that much fluid action happening. So Baki, for example, Record of Ragnarok, which forget what I said about Baki, that they do not do a good job with Record of Ragnarok. um, and then like JoJo's Part 6, which is obviously better than those other two, but and I think there are good parts of JoJo's Part 6 done by Netflix, but it does just feel like there's a lack of movement. Gustav, welcome to Pirate King tier. Thank you very much for joining. So you now get access to the Pirate King podcast, which is a monthly release on YouTube and Patreon, and you get access to the weekly release of the Yonka level podcast. And Pirate King podcast is my longer podcast where I answer a bunch of questions and everything like that every month. The Baki anime is unwatchable. I actually find the Baki anime fun to watch. I thought it was really bad initially, but something about it, it's just mindlessly dumb fun. It's just I just wish the fights they did it a bit better. It's actually good at everything, I think, in terms of capturing the Baki feel, except for the fights. Oh, Seven Deadly Sins? Yeah, another good action anime. Record of Ragnarok deserves so much more with animation. Yeah, the tricky thing about Record of Ragnarok is that it's really just action. So if you don't have that going for it, then it's like, what it's supposed to do? Said Abdo says, what are your thoughts on Teach's supposed mother looking like Ovia slash Robin? To me, Teach's mom doesn't look that much like Ovia slash Robin, so I don't have any comment on that. Yeah, I actually don't have any comment on that. Um, I don't think like. Let me take a look again. Let me take a look again with the Viz. Yeah, because if I'm looking at this, I just I just think that it's too similar looking to other One Piece women to really say anything. Gustav says Mihawk destroyed a ship. Okay, so Gustav's got his points um, that he wants to drop here. So Gustav is saying, unrelated to anything, but I think Luffy's wings will destroy Pluton and Uranus. Mihawk destroyed a ship at the start of the story, then Zoro in the middle, then another ship destroyed at the end of the series. Pluto is also the god of the underworld, Zoro king of hell, etc. That's interesting. Sanji has Skywalk and lasers do nothing to him. He can fly to Uranus while it's firing and destroy it. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I've never thought about that. I didn't think that the ancient weapons would necessarily be destroyed. So then, by that logic, Luffy kills Shirahoshi, right? That's interesting. I could get behind that. That makes sense. No, but in all seriousness, yeah, that would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool. That'd be kind of insane, like just for two humans to be able to destroy the ancient weapons. It's just Oda rehashing designs like with Barald and Kaido, Barreled and Kaido. Yeah, I think there might just be some similarities in designs there. Because I think at a certain point it wouldn't matter who the mother is. It just needs to be a woman from the Davy clan, you know? Self-proclaimed king of hell. Yeah. Yeah. I think that they have the same facial features as Said Abdo. The thing is that I just don't think that in One Piece with the female characters, I don't know how much you can draw from similar facial features because I'm not saying all of Oda's female designs are the same. They're obviously not. I do think that they're less distinct. I think there's much greater variety in like the male designs, and I think that there are a lot more similarities in the One Piece female designs um, than is common in a lot of manga, which makes it harder for me to concretely say just based off like some face and hair that like, oh, this character is exactly like that character. Jonathan Ewan says thoughts on Blackbeard having secret dream like Luffy that he needs to be king of the world before it can be achieved. I think we need to understand for so one of the things I'm looking forward to the most in this flashback is Blackbeard's what do you call sorry, Rox's own motivations, and that'll tell us a lot about Blackbeard's. Because the thing that we still don't know about Rox, we know where his, we know where he started his pirate career, but we don't know why he started it. That's the big missing piece. We know it started with him breaking into the flower room and doing all that shit, right? And saying, "I'm going to come back. I'm going to be king of the world." We still don't understand what's driving him. Like, what was he born with? What did he come to believe? What are his goals exactly? We still don't understand all of that. So if Blackbeard has a bigger goal for becoming king of the world, I think it would be similar. Um, yeah, I think it would be similar to Rox's, but I think a more twisted version of it. Tornado says, I feel like it's only because spoilers said that she looks like Robin slash Ovia. Yeah, that's the other thing. Because I saw the spoilers too, and the spoilers said that she looks like Robin slash Ovia. But then when I read the chapter, I thought there'd be something more striking. At the same time, it's like, well, how similar do you have to look to Robin slash Ovia? Um, like, you could argue that it is similar, but I don't think it's similar to the point that you'd be like, this character definitely looks like this character design. You know, maybe it's something, but we don't know. One thing that I was thinking about that I talked about on the Patreon podcast that just dropped, that I just recorded. Sorry, that didn't just drop. It drops tomorrow. Is the um, the possibility. So we know that God Valley disappears, right? The Celestial Dragons obviously survive. Teach survives. God's Knight survive. Rocks pirates abandon the place, right? So it seems like they escape, but like the island itself, disappears, right? So that suggests to me that Uranus is used probably at some point, and it does make me wonder: does that mean that everybody, like all of the, I think Kuma was able to save a lot of people, and it does make me wonder: does that mean that everybody at God Valley, like just the random the Davy clan members, etc., were they killed? And then we were talking last stream about the possibility of Emu coming down and Dami reversing rocks, right? If we look at what happened in Elbaf, when the Dami reversey happened there to Dorian Brogy, it started a ripple chain reaction where all the other Elbaf giants started to swap one by one as well, right? I wonder if we end up in a scenario where like the Davy clan gets Dami reversied as a whole. That'd be kind of crazy. Umair, thanks for the two. Hey, Morj, do you think we see Kid in Elbaf? I'm hoping. I do think we'll see Kid in Elbaf. I feel more strongly now that we will see Kid in Elbaf. I wouldn't be surprised if Kid is a Davy clan member. I wouldn't be surprised. Knut Morgan, thanks for the two. Seems that Loki inherited Rox's true dream, not Blackbeard. Yeah, that's very possible. But the thing is that like Loki also had, I feel like he has like a skewed view of things because I don't think he like it's not like Luffy and Shanks where Luffy like really got to know and interact with Shanks and grow to understand him to some degree and what he stands for. I think Loki with Rox was always kind of the outside looking in because Rox didn't want anything to do with Loki. So I don't know if Loki either has like an accurate understanding of Rox's dream. And one thing that's interesting is that Loki's goal is to destroy the world, right? We don't know what that means exactly. Maybe it means to destroy Emu and them, etc. Or maybe it means the literal sense, like he thinks that the whole world sucks so bad that just wants to destroy it all. But counterpart to that is Ida, right? Um, she raises him to believe that, or she doesn't. She preaches the idea that nothing in this world is meant to be destroyed, which is a very beautiful idea. Um, so I think Loki having these two influences growing up, like one is Rox, this cool badass pirate that he's seeing, and he gets it in his head that like I'm gonna be like Rox, destroy the world, etc. And then Ida, who's the actual kind, present, parental figure to him, who has these values that nothing in the world should be destroyed. I think Loki will have to grapple with that as he grows up, really in the present day. Umir says, I think Morj is praying we don't see Law again, lol. No, I'm down to see Law again. I'm down to see Law again. I just think that it's time to stop. One, I want him in a smaller role. I'm just tired of the fact that this dude just showed up and just took over One Piece for like a crazy long period of time, and everyone fucking ate it up. Um, and two, I think people overrate the shit out of him. Same with Sabo. Aether says, I wonder if Kid being on Clover Island will be of any significance. What? What the fuck? What do you mean Clover Island? What's Clover Island? I just looked up Clover's Island, which is just talking about Clover. Side Abdo says the worst trio of Luffy, Kid, and Law are parallels with Garp, Rocks, and Roger, I think. I just have you seen Kid and Law? Have you seen Rocks and Garp? Like I just think, if anything, Luffy has two parallels, right? Because it's Luffy parallels with Garp, obviously, and obviously with Roger, right? Luffy, Ace, and Blackbeard, says Ahmed Boost. Yeah, that's a more accurate because, like, obviously, Luffy, descendant of Garp, and those are the three like top tier characters coming out of this generation. Obviously, Blackbeard's older than the rest of them, but like they're the three. They're the three figures that essentially could be Pirate King, right? Ace could have been Pirate King, died early. Blackbeard has the potential to become the evil Pirate King. Luffy will become Pirate King for real, right? So, Luffy from Garp, Ace from Roger, Blackbeard from Rocks. John does his kid in law are bums. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sabo will fight Dragon. Luffy's true rival is Lucy. I know Oda likes doing parallels a lot, but I don't think, how do I say? I feel like he's not trying to do parallels for every little thing. Like I don't think Law has a parallel from previous generations. Partly because I don't think Law was a long-term planned character necessarily. I think Oda's even talked about in interviews that he's surprised that he came up with so much story for Law. So in that vein, like you can see some clear parallels, like Rocks and Harold, and like Roger and Whitebeard, and those dynamics. I think if Luffy has a white beard in the modern day story, it'll be Loki. I don't think it's any of his other pirate buddies. Kurokami Najimi Sasabo versus Dami Reversi Dragon. Dragon would, I think, breathe on him and he would die. Like, Sabo versus just like regular Dragon is like a low zero diff fight, basically, for Dragon. And then Dami Reversi Dragon is probably some sort of a monster. Law is one of one. He is unique. He is unique. There's no other character quite like him in One Piece. I've always said this. The fucked up part about Law to me is that sorry, there's only two reasons that I don't care for Law. The first one is the big one, which is that he's introduced into the story so late that and just dominates the story. It takes a tremendous amount of attention away from the characters that I actually like. Um, right, that's the biggest thing. And number two, just a little too angsty. Characters that are driven solely by revenge, I just get tired of them after a bit. Even it's not even about like good or bad writing. It's just not fun for me. It's just like I'm sorry that happened to you, man. It's not like it's a bad choice or anything. It's just I just don't I that's just not my like thing that like character that's so like Sasuke growing up driven by revenge, yada yada. Like I don't care at a certain point because it just feels like it feels like the same emotional loop on repeat. And they're always pissed and always like in a bad mood and always angry. So I don't like that. It's one of the reasons that even though he's a phenomenally written character, right? Phenomenally written. This is not a critique. This is personal preference. It's one of the reasons I don't care for Guts from Berserk. Um, just, uh, yeah, just him getting angry. There's like a million times in the story where he like sees Griffith or hears Griffith, and then he yells, and then you got faces of like anger and rage and fury, all rightly placed, deserved, yada yada. But it just doesn't do it for me as a character to keep following that dude. That's one of the Guts was always my least favorite part of Berserk. Not literally least favorite, but following his story was not my favorite part of Berserk. Everything else around it, I think, was. So those are the two things for me with Law. But let's say Law had been introduced a lot earlier in the story. Um, let's say Law had been introduced way, way, way earlier in the story, like from towards the beginning. Let's say instead of Zoro, we got Law as Luffy's second main character. And if you remove Law's obsession with revenge and just wrote him like he was pre-time skip or post Dressrosa, I would probably really like Law. Law might even be my second favorite character. So it's not like I just dislike what he did to the story and the fact that he came out of the blue and did so much. This is no critique yeah, no critique for guts or anything like that. It's just a personal preference thing, you know? Derek Boppler, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 9 months. With most of the God Valley fighters relying on pure hockey, how will Oda make the fights look and feel different? He can't just have them all Conqueror's Hockey Clash. Ah, you, my friend, are quite naive. Der Boppler says he can't just have them all Conqueror's Hockey Clash. Listen, Der Boppler, obviously you're a longtime One Piece fan, longtime supporter of the channel and everything like that. I'm not saying you don't know what you're about, but if you don't realize that Oda most certainly can just have all of them Conqueror's Hockey Clash, then you might be in for some rude awakenings as the God Valley flashback continues. Uh, Oda, you know what's that? I'd screen share if I wasn't worried that it would crash the entire stream. But you know that meme where it's like it's a maybe a bit more of an obscure meme. It's a meme of like a bird doing stand up. Does anyone know that meme? Bird doing stand up meme. Bird doing stand up meme. What's the name of the meme? Yeah, it's the get better. It's the bird doing stand. That's how I know it. If you guys know that, that's what I'm thinking of in my head right now, which is like Oda and his Conqueror's Hockey Clashes. It's basically like, what do you? Okay, Oda, you've lined up all these really good fights. What do you got for us? He's like, Conqueror's Hockey Clashes. They're like, what else? And he's just looking at his note cards. It's just like Conqueror's Hockey Clash, Conqueror's Hockey Clash, Conqueror's Hockey Clash. You know those notebooks that he's got in his studio with all of his ideas for the next arc and everything like that. Uh, I would not be surprised if like God Valley's like just like there's like one notebook that's called God Valley Fights. It's like 2 pages long. It's just a lineup of everybody's Conqueror's Hockey Clash. Call it a day. Um, in all seriousness, I've talked about this in past streams. I do like to believe that just based on how exciting God Valley is, like just the prospect of all this, how much effort Oda's put into to setting up the fights and setting up the lineups and everything, I think he will give us a little bit more than just a clash. Um, I think for some fights it might just be a clash, right? But I think for some fights we could get a little bit more. One thing that was very encouraging to me was the Rocks versus Harold fight, which was way more of a fight than I ever thought Oda would do in a flashback like this. Like it was actually few pages of back and forth action, right? It's not the most crazy choreographed or unique abilities, but more than I would ever expect for like a one-off fight between Rocks and Harold. So do I expect God Valley to have that level of stuff? No, because the Rocks Herald fight carries a lot of dramatic weight, which not every fight here will. But I think some fights will have a little bit of extra juice. Um, I think the further you go down the ladder, it's like, do I think like Captain John versus God Knight number 6 or whatever, if that happens? That's probably just going to be maybe you see them in the background just clashing swords or something, right? Do I think like Whitebeard versus, let's say, Figarland Garling, like many people believe, do I think that could get a bit more than a clash? Maybe that gets a couple panels, a few panels or something. I think as you go up the scale of significance, like considering how important Rayleigh is to this flashback, I think he'll get a few panels of whoever his opponent is. And then I think the big parts are obviously Roger, Rock, Garp. What happens with them is going to be similar to Rocks versus Harold, if not more. I hope. Um, Ryan Dufour, thanks for the 5. Does Dragon have Rain God fruit mentioned in Skypiea? So I wonder now if Dragon might have. So there's the possibility of the Rain God fruit. There's also the Forest God that's mentioned in the Elbap mural. I really like the idea of Dragon having one of those God fruits. Just because. How do I say this? I think most of us expected him to have the Wind Logia, right? That was an expectation that started from like very early in the story, just because of the wind stuff that he does, the storm related things. And dragon is always associated with wind, like where's the wind blowing, etc. Right? At this point in the story, it's two things. One, the wind Logia is almost too obvious at this point, right? Obviously, the obvious can be true. Like a lot of people didn't even like Zebek being Blackbeard's father was something that was so plain and simple as a theory that it wasn't even really considered a theory. It was like people would try and find more interesting angles for who Zebek could be the father of. Like a lot of people were like Zebek might be Shanks' father or Buggy's father, because yeah, you could guess that if like you needed a straightforward, simple guess, it's like, well, Blackbeard's obviously the new version of Zebek. Maybe that's just Blackbeard's dad, but it's just such a one-two simple thing that I think most people. It's not even a theory that really went around. It was kind of just like, oh, well, that would be the obvious route. What are the interesting routes, right? With Dragon with the Wind Fruit, it's been teased so much that now if we get a big reveal that Dragon has the Wind Fruit, it's not gonna be like considered crazy exciting, I don't think, unless he does like some really cool move to open with it or whatever. At the same time, the Wind Fruit is missing, so like in terms of nobody has it so far, so it could very well be Dragon. Another alternative possibility is that we know that the man marked by flames creates whirlpools somehow, so that might be a wind-based ability as well. We don't know. So maybe somebody else has the Wind Fruit. So all that being said, the other reason is that I think the wind fruit, like even though the wind fruit was expected for a long time, people still thought it was an exciting possibility. Sorry, a possibility, because specifically because for a long, long section of the story, Logias were the most exciting devil fruit type. Then we started to hit, I would say, really from Wano onwards, Logias were supplanted by mythical zones as the most exciting type. I think when Marco was introduced, that like people immediately became more hyped about mythical zones, and people were really excited about that. But I think Logia still occupied a lot of real estate because Logias were the broken ability for all of pre-time skip, like the absurd broken ability, right? So Marco was cool. It was like, shit, mythical Zoans. Like, Marco was the first time that Zoans really looked cool. Before that, Zoans were like, he can turn into a giraffe, he can turn into a dog, he can turn into a fucking sheep or whatever. It doesn't really mean that much. Marco was the first moment that Oda kind of flipped things on its head. It was like, the most generic type of fruit that you guys thought before actually has the most potential to be something really unique. Okay? So Marco really opened the door to that. But as the story continued, it still was just like assumed that the strongest fruits, generally speaking, outside of outliers like the Gorogoromi, the strongest fruits are generally going to be Logias, right? Like Blackbeard's Darkness fruit, Enel's Gorogoromi, Kainu's fruit, Kizaru's fruit, right? Like that was just the trend in general. So you're expecting the Logias to go to the heavy hitters. As of Wano, once we're seeing like Kaido's Dragon fruit, especially Luffy's Nika fruit, and then we just get the Egghead, and it's just like Gorosei after Gorosei after Gorosei have Zoans. Emu has this mythical Zoan, most likely. Elbaf's special fruit is probably a mythical Zoan. I think what people realized is that whereas other devil fruits, they're capped by their concept, right? Like lightning fruit just covers lightning, right? Like magma fruit just covers magma, fire fruit covers fire, whatever. But with mythical zones, especially taking into account the fact that Oda can invent deities and mythical beings in One Piece, suddenly it's like, wait, that's the actual really, really crazy abilities, because it goes beyond what like a simple devil fruit concept might be, because it's like, well, if you have the devil fruit of like a god Oda made up like Nika, well then that could mean anything. That could mean so much shit, right? So much reality warping shit, right? Same with if like whatever Emu's fruit is, right? Like if Emu has the devil fruit, like the devil fruit or something, that could mean so many things that goes beyond a simple singular element, right? So I think we've reached a point where mythical zones are now the really, really exciting thing. It doesn't help that Logias in general have been shown to be like you can deal with Logias easier and easier now. Like Green Bull was revealed to have like the plant Logia, which was cool for like a few chapters, and then it's kind of like, yeah, he's not like a top tier guy or anything like that, right? He's obviously top tier in the sense he's an admiral, but Green Bull would fall into the category of like that admiral that Rocks killed off screen or something, like that level of power. So yeah, I think we're just at a point where like dragon being revealed with a wind Logia. Obviously, having that is better than having no devil fruit, right? It's still really cool, and it's still one of the stronger elements to have. But we've just reached a point where like the really really cool epic devil fruits that have like insane abilities are now mythical zones, basically. Elijah Petty, thanks for the five. Oda may mirror the Trinity with Nika, Joyboy, and Davy Jones as three faces of one being, united through the will of D. Blackbeard Three Skulls hints at a reflection of this. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting idea. Um, but I don't think that. One, I don't think Nika is real. I think Nika was always through the power of imagination. Um, I think the true magic is like whatever the sun that they touched in the first world. Joy Boy and Davy Jones, I just feel like Joy Boy and Davy Jones are two separate lines personally. And I think like the Joy Boy line led to like Roger, Luffy in them, and the Davy Jones line led to Rocks and Blackbeard in them. And that's not to say Davy Jones was evil, because now we know that like not every member of the Davy clan is just evil, right? Like, um, I mean maybe Davy Jones is evil, but that obviously doesn't mean his descendants are evil. Like that's a big theme in One Piece, right? So, but Blackbeard is evil, even if Rocks wasn't necessarily. Um, Ignorant Weed, welcome to the Pirate King tier. Thank you very, very much for joining. Watch out for this month's Pirate King podcast submissions. That'll probably go up in a couple weeks, and you get access to all the previous Pirate King podcasts. The last one was a very thick one because we had a ton of questions submitted, and I think that's a really interesting one. So check that out, and thanks for the long time support, man. Um, I feel like you've been a Pirate King tier member before. Um, you probably have. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 50 real quick. Yeah, Ignorant Weed says I'm back, bro. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for the support, man. It usually tells me when somebody's uh like already had many months, but I remember a lot of your questions. Thanks for the support, man. Um, Name says Logia Awakening finna bring the Logia hype back. Hopefully not Cope. That's actually I think that's very solid as a possibility. One theory that I have, I think I talked about it. Maybe I talked about it last stream or last podcast, last Yonko podcast. So this is a weird theory, but it's a thought. So for some reason, none of the Logias that we've seen so far have shown awakenings, and at this point, they've been in very big battles, right? Marineford, right? Like Kizaru versus Luffy at Egghead, Aokiji versus Garp, right? And you could argue like maybe they were all trying to hold back in every one of those scenarios, and that's entirely possible. Green Bull and Wano, like there's just so many scenarios at this point. But one thought I had was like, let's say that like some people believe. I want to combine some ideas, right? Let's say like some people believe um, Annie's lobby, the reason it's so perpetually bathed in light is because a Logia awakened on that, used awakening on that island, right? Let's say Raijin Island, let's say the Gorogoronomi, like a past Enel's fruit user, used awakening on that island. Let's say that's the possibility, right? Um, that every time we see an island with some crazy elemental thing going on, it's awakening, okay? Now, if that were the case, you would probably see a lot of islands. Like it's been like the devil fruits have been around for like centuries and centuries and centuries. So you would probably see a shit ton of islands that are like any slobby, right? Bathed in light, right? But there's only one that's really known for that. Same with the Raijin Island. It's known as Raijin Island because that's the only place that that sort of thing is common, right? I feel like I'm giving away a big theory right here, but you know, it's whatever. So my thought, and so if we combine two things that are kind of question marks, which is like, okay, why then do we never see Logias use their awakenings, and why is there this extra mystery that goes with the concept of Logia awakenings? And then two, why don't we see like a lot of islands that have the after effects of one big past Logia awakenings user, right? Because there've been like God knows how many dozens and dozens and dozens of like Gorogoronomi users throughout history, but only one Raijin Island. How many dozens and dozens of light fruit users throughout history, but only one Enies Lobby type island, right? What if Logia Awakening means literally becoming that element forever, permanently, and that means death? So you get to use like a massive elemental move that's like permanently changes the atmosphere of the island forever, but you give your life up in the process because Logia is already their natural form is basically playing with the idea of like man or element, right? You're transforming from one to the other, it becomes very fluid, right? If you just awaken that ability, um, could that mean like that taking that concept one step further? Because I feel like awakenings are usually taking the concept a step further. Could that mean just death? And that's why, like, even in a battle like Marineford or something, you're not going to see Logia Awakening, right? That's why it's so rare to see Logia Awakenings, despite us having seen them in combat for so long at this point. So I think that's a fun little concept. Maybe I'll make a theory video out of it. But yeah. So I wonder if that might be a thing. I wonder if we'll get a Logia Awakening in the story, but it'll be like a big sacrificial moment or something like that. Maybe fucking Aokiji or Kizaru or something like that. Who knows? Um, yeah. People lots of times point to Akainu and Aokiji turning Punk Hazard into like fire and ice, and they're like, that's got to be Logia Awakening and stuff. But it's like, no, they fought for 10 days, right? Just using their regular attacks, they would turn the island into that just organically over time, right? Maybe it's Logia Awakening, I don't know, but I'm not saying it has to be Logia Awakening, right? Because you just look at Marineford, like Marineford went on for like a few hours, and already that entire island was like fucking uh, like the entire environment had changed, right? If you give a Kainu and Aokiji with their abilities 10 days to just spam attacks, yeah, there's going to be a shit ton of ice and a shit ton of fire. So I don't view Punk Hazard as evidence of awakening, but it might have been. I'm not saying it's like definitive one way or another. Anyway, yeah, Demonio just brought that up. Prophet Gledon brought it up. Like, yeah, just if Akainu's spamming his mag, like we already saw what like one meteor shower from Akainu did. We already saw what one Ice Age from Aokiji did. Ice Wise, like they already have huge effects with their Logia abilities just organically. Like you give Akainu 10 days and say like, hey, fucking melt half this island. He'll be like, okay, I can do it. In general, with the Logias that we've seen or not the Loki, it's the admirals that we've seen. Like it's common, even forget admirals. Like it's just common to see island scale abilities. Like Fujitora lifted basically an island worth of rubble and debris off the ground casually, right? Like obviously. Kaido can create like a island-sized magma dragon. Whitebeard's fruit can like flip the seas and everything like that, right? So island scale effects are not uncommon. It's more so the permanent sort of like now any lobby is just forever light or whatever. That's something that's pretty unique, you know? Anyway, Tom Tom says, Morj, why would it still be snowing though? I don't know how weather works exactly, but Kiji might have just made the whole place so fucking cold that it's just a permanent cold front or something around that area. Um, but I don't know. That's just my theory. It's a fun theory. It's a speculative theory. All right, continuing on. JP, thanks for the 10. So God's Blade is being chosen to be an Emu vessel, and yet Emu doesn't use the strongest God's Knight. Wonder if it's seen as almost a sacrificial honor among celestial dragons when in reality it's more like a curse. That's a really good point. And like we remember Gunko as a child experiencing something really bad with her father. Maybe Gunko refused, or like maybe the father didn't want Gunko to become Emu's puppet or whatever. And so then that's what Gunko saw, which was Emu punishing her father. Um, and then she was forcefully brainwashed into becoming a puppet. I think that's a solid possibility. Yeah, that's a really good thing to bring up. Yeah, why wouldn't I don't know why Emu wouldn't choose just the strongest God's Knight. Yeah, maybe there's some particular sort of like things that make it ideal. Maybe Emu only likes going into women's bodies because he's weird like that. Otherworlds JT says even Vegapunk mentioned not being able to capture the essence of Logia awakening, so it must be something interesting. Yeah. Demonio says even if there's so few islands that have permanent elemental changes, Logia are quite rare, and awakening is even rarer on top of that. As well, there are thousands of islands we haven't seen in the story. Yeah, yeah, I mean that's a good point. But Logia are quite rare doesn't really play into that as much because like even though they're quite rare, somebody at some point is eating it, right? Like it's quite rare in terms of like out of the 100x devil fruits that exist, only like a small percentage are Logia. But each generation, there's probably somebody that is eating that Logia fruit, right? Um, so like you would imagine, just over the course of like a century, you probably go through like 2, 3 users of the same Logia fruit, maybe at least two. Um, and so across 800 years or whatever, that's a decent number of shots for each Logia. Um, and it's interesting because like a lot of these islands are known as just that island, though, right? So like uh, Raijin Island is known as Raijin Island, meaning that it is the Lightning Island. There's probably not other Lightning Islands around. Enies Lobby is known for being the island that has perpetual light, and that suggests that there's not really other islands like that. And then the other part of it is what is it? Just consider, right? Let's say Logia Awakening does permanently change something, like turn the whole island into light. Um, that would mean that um, how do I say this? Let's say it does that, right? That would mean that if one character masters Awakening, right, then they alone would probably turn over the course of their lifetime dozens of islands in One Piece into light, right? Like, why wouldn't you use? The question is, why wouldn't you use your big ability, right? Because Zoans don't hesitate to use their awakened form; they always use their awakened form. Paramecia's Katakuri will bust out his awakening or whatever pretty casually. Doflamingo will use his awakening or whatever. It just needs to be a decently serious fight, and you'll use your awakening. To me, it suggests there must be something about Logia Awakenings. Like, if Logia Awakenings didn't have some big drawback, and if Logia Awakenings did have this effect of permanently turning an island's atmosphere into something different, then you would see a lot. Like, all it takes is one dude. Like, if Kizaru's mastered his awakening or something, then yeah, over the course of his career as an admiral, vice admiral, you're getting into lots of high difficulty fights. There should be a lot of islands that have been turned into that, right? Like, if every island that Luffy used the Nika Fruits awakening had a permanent change, then in the span of like a year or so, he'd have turned a shit ton of islands into some new atmosphere. So that's my only thought with Logia Awakenings, which is like, why is Oda saving them? Like he's very particular about not showing them. If they change atmospheres, like people speculate, why don't we see way more islands with changed atmosphere? Because again, just one character at some point in history awakening a Logia means that they would change a shit ton of islands over time, right? Because you would bust it out anytime you're in an extreme difficulty, high difficulty fight. Um, so I think it's just something to think about. Rihanna Zara, thanks for the 5. What do you think Oda's going to do with the Celestial Dragons? I believe he's going to end up having Imudami reversing them. I agree with you, Rihanna Zara, just because at this point I don't think there's an easy way to solve them. Because, yes, some of them have shown that they can be redeemed or whatever, like Miasgord, or at least change their ways or whatever, and have moral awakenings. But is Oda going to be able to do that for all of them? Probably fucking not, because like that takes a lot of experiences and like actually, like you don't just like wake up one day and be like, you know what, I'm now I understand, and now I'm like a totally different person, right? Well, actually, in One Piece, Oda could write it like that. That's the thing. Like in One Piece, characters' emotions are more, it's more fairy tale esque, not fairy tale the manga. I'm saying like fairy tale, like actual fairy tales, where like things are written a bit more of like not like hyper realistic manner, like hyper psychological manner, but more like it's the ideas that are being gotten across. Um, what am I saying here? I do think it'd be very hard to be like, okay, these celestial, like all these celestial dragons are doing these hunting competitions, or enslaving people, right? Um, all of them would just magically turn into redeemed people or whatever, and they get assigned, I don't know, community service or something, and people are just okay with that. The other thing is like, even if Oda tried to redeem those celestial dragons, we already saw with the Don Quixote family what happens, right? If you're like a celestial dragon that's like, you know what, I've changed my ways, I apologize, I'm just gonna be like a normal person like the rest of you now, I'm really sorry. They're not gonna like that. They will still try and fuck you up and torture you, right? That's natural. That's gonna happen. Okay? So it's like, what really are the other options? Does Oda just put them all in jail forever? Maybe. I feel like that's a little bit. It's not dark by our standards. By our standards, it would be like that's almost humane. Like these people did like killed so many people, enslaved so many people. Leaving them alive and just putting them in jail feels like nice. But I don't know if by Oda's standards, he'd be like he wants to end the story with a bunch of people being put in jail. I don't know. So Oda's simple route might just be Dami Reversi, and then they just go out as demons. I don't know. Name says most Logias aren't solo and have fodder next to him always. It could just cause too much mass damage to really be usable in those cases. Yeah, that's entirely possible. Again, like people might be right. Maybe a Kainu Aokiji on a deserted island is the only time that you can really see the full power of Logia's awakenings. And I personally always think that this is the strongest argument that like Admiral fans have, which is we haven't seen Logia awakenings, right? So it's a hard argument because you never know if characters have awakenings because like Kaido and Big Mom don't, but Kaku does. So it's like hard to bank on like, well, maybe this fight would have gone differently or something, or like admirals, even if you think they're below standard Yonko or something. If these admirals like Aokiji, Kizaru, they use their awakenings, then they're just as strong. I think that's a solid like hypothetical possibility. And it might just be Logia awakenings are so broken that we just never get to see it. Um, yeah, like it's just we've seen so many Logia at this point. It's also interesting that never mind, it doesn't matter. Otherworlds JT says you keep saying that there have been multiple users of certain devil fruits, but I don't think any and everyone could awaken a devil fruit. That's true. That's true. But I'm saying all it takes is one person in history to awaken a certain fruit. Like we're going down the line of like, okay, if also I fully acknowledge this might be applying too much logic to One Piece, whereas Oda's not really trying to have us think of all these details, right? Maybe the answer is when a Logia fruit user awakens, then they can change the atmosphere of a whole island. Maybe that is just the truth, and so then something like Enies Lobby is an Awakened Light user's application. Something like the Raijin Island is an Awakened Lightning user's application, whatever, right? I'm just saying that if we thought about it like a little bit, like tried to add some realism, there's some dozen number of Logia, right? That means like hundreds of Logia users throughout history, right? Yes, it's rare to awaken fruits, but probably at least some people throughout history awaken their Logia fruit. And then once you've awakened your fruit, you it's gonna have multiple uses. Again, Zoan users use their Zoan awakening pretty often, like Katakuri, Doflamingo, right? So if a Logia user every time they use their awakening, it permanently changes an island, then even just one Logia user in history who awakened, let's say, the Enel's fruit, the Gorogoromi, even just one awakened user of that is going to have turned a good, like, at least several islands over the course of their lifetime into permanently changed atmospheres, right? But we don't really see that. And also, if that were the case, just adding a bit more realism, we would probably see those islands in pretty close proximity to one another, you know, just naturally, right? Not everybody's like Luffy traveling all over the world or whatever. So, you know, you probably have Raijin, like, turn your, in a big battle, you turn your whole home island into, let's say, permanent light, like permanent sunlight, right? Like Kizaru's former user might have done or something, right? And then maybe like a nearby island, you also have an extreme difficulty fight, and now that one's permanently light, right? But we don't see any sort of like consecutive chains or anything like that. So I don't know. I'm not saying this theory is like ironclad or like definitive. I'm just saying that like if we walk down the path of like, okay, Logia users can permanently awaken, like Logia users that awaken permanently change the environment of an island. It's like that's a really cool, strong ability. But if that's the case, why don't we have multiple islands that are like permanently a type? You know, all it would take is one person awakening, then you've got at least a couple islands that they probably use their awakening on, right? Benny, thanks for the two. Maybe it's temporary. Ace Alabasta 3 days. Punk Hazard 2 years. But we're trying to talk about the ones that like are like Raijin Island or like any Slavi that seem to be permanent, you know? Ignorant Weed, thanks for the 5. Had to save money to improve my life, and sadly I canceled all my online memberships for some time, but I still watch and like all your videos, bro. Thanks, man. I do really, really appreciate that. I hope your life is more set in order and everything like that, and things are going good. I really, really do appreciate the support, but of course, put yourself first. Only do online subscriptions to things that you know you feel passionate about that aren't hurting your quality of life and everything. I really, really do appreciate the support, but um, and of course, like the long time support from you. But uh, as long as your life's in order first, that's what matters first. But if you feel like you're in a place to support again, then obviously I'm happy to have you back in Pirate King tier. Yeah, so I just hope things are good, man. One admiral that will awaken as a Kainu? Hmm. Yeah, I hope we see a Kainu's awakening. Honestly, the fact that like if Kaido and Big Mom are brought back into the story, if Kaido and Big Mom are brought back into the story, then they would likely come back with Awakening. And I think that would be the one thing that would be like, oh, that kind of excuses Oda not having them show Awakenings um in Wano. Because it's like, oh, he was planning on them coming back as characters, so that's why he um if he's planning on having them come back as characters, that's why he wanted to keep Awakenings in the back pocket, because you want to have a character awaken when they kind of resurge back from death, similar to Luffy, you know? Dion Locklear says the admiral that Rox killed was likely a Logia user. Interesting that the fight was off screen. I don't think we have any way of knowing that, because like, you know, Z is from that era, and Z is maybe a canon character, and he didn't have a Logia. Um, Kong is from that era, didn't have, as far as we know, maybe he has a Logia, but as far as we can tell, probably didn't have a Logia. And then Sengoku, also an admiral from that era, didn't have a Logia. So I think it might just be like a, um, what do you call? It might just be, um, it might just be like a modern day coincidence that you have three admirals that are Logia. It actually slightly, in a very minor way, just I guess some sort of OCD sort of way or something, in a very small way, it does bother me that Fujitora is not a Logia. In a small way. Maybe it represents the fact that Fujitora has not bought into the world government's shit like all the other admirals were beforehand. He's an unwilling and scripted soldier, right? Um, that's what I could rationalize it as. When Fujitora was first introduced with the gravity fruit, I did initially think that, you know what, it's cool, because other people also were saying this, like maybe the new Admiral trio between Fujitora, Kizaru, and Ryukogyu, who we hadn't met yet, maybe the new Admiral trio is like the physics trio. So now it's like gravity, light, and then Green Bull will have space. Gravity, light, space. And I thought that was cool because I just like the symmetry of that. But then it turned out no, it's gravity, light, and then another Logia. So it's just like Fujitora is just the odd man out. Yeah, that was just something that I guess gravity is close to sort of elemental. Like it's not like Fujitora has like the chop chop fruit or something like that. Gravity, you could argue, is like close to something elemental, you know? But it's not. It's a paramecia fruit at the end of the day. I think I also didn't like Fujitora's devil fruit in the sense that Blackbeard had already explained that darkness in One Piece, because darkness isn't a real element in real life, right? It's just considered the absence of light. But in magic fantasy worlds, you usually consider darkness to be its own separate element, because human mythology, right? Um, so Blackbeard explained the darkness fruit. How does it work? How does the ability? And that's always cool, because then in fantasy worlds, you can make darkness mean kind of anything. Is it like shadow abilities? Is it like negation abilities? Is it like destructive abilities, right? So darkness becomes this cool element. So in One Piece, Blackbeard basically explained darkness is gravity. Darkness is a form of gravity. It's like essentially, I always viewed Blackbeard's fruit for all pre-time skip as essentially being the gravity fruit. Like it's something that because he explains it as that, and I was like, it's a play off of the concept of black holes, how that works. Blackbeard explains it as like it can suck things in and like push things out. Like it's just it's a form of like pulling or pushing force. It's gravity. So I was like, Blackbeard already has. I always viewed Blackbeard's fruit as essentially the gravity fruit with a bonus of negating other devil fruit abilities. And then Fujitora came along, and then Fujitora also has the gravity fruit. That's what I felt initially. I was just like, oh, it is just repeating the same ability as before, but now with more of a gravity emphasis. So I didn't like Fujitora's abilities early on because I already felt like Blackbeard filled the gravity niche in One Piece. I felt like we'd already gotten this fruit, and now I have to view Blackbeard's fruit as something different. I know it's not the same thing. You want a fun little theory? In terms of final matchups, I think one of the final matchups we might get, I think Fujitora, because I do think Fujitora is going to defect. So I think we will see Fujitora versus. Um, you guys want to hear what I think the final matchup's going to be for Kizaru? Okay. I think Kizaru's final matchup, like who he fights, will either be. I think it's going to be another Admiral. I think it's going to be another Admiral. I think Kizaru will fight another Admiral, and that'll be what's because I think his opportunity to quit the Marines was Egghead. Okay, I think in the final war he will still be on the side of the Marines, but he will be fighting against another admiral and a former admiral. So I think Kizaru's final matchup is either against Fujitora or Aokiji. And I think over the course of that battle, Kizaru will essentially throw it or basically realize he's on the wrong side and quit. I think Fujitora versus Kizaru is a great matchup because Fujitora is an admiral that's like very staunch in his ways of like actually enacting justice and everything. And I think him versus Kizaru is a phenomenal matchup because gravity versus light, gravity's a hard counter. I think that could be really cool to see. And then Aokiji versus Kizaru is a fascinating matchup based on character arcs because Aokiji and Kizaru have the exact same character arc. It's just that Aokiji was able to finally make the shift and break away and realize that he shouldn't be on the Marines and make the shift and break away. And Kizaru, what Kizaru's just experienced is essentially the same point that Aokiji left off at Ohara. So Kizaru essentially just experienced his own Ohara. This time it was his friend that he was forced to go against, but he took actions that Aokiji wouldn't have at the end of the day. And that's why Kizaru is broken at the end of it, whereas Aokiji kind of had begun his path into thinking for himself post Ohara, right? So they have the same exact character arc, same exact character narrative playing out. I think it'd be cool to see Aokiji versus Kizaru at the end of the day, and I think it could sway Kizaru at the end. Um, Okay, JP, thanks for the 10. When Aokiji first appeared in Punk Hazard, I thought the implication was he was part of the Revolutionary Army. For the revolutionaries not having enough firepower, Aokiji being undercover agent for them would be cool, in my opinion. He's part of the Revolutionary Army. So that was a common. I know what you're talking about. That was a little bit of a idea that people talked about. I think it's become less and less prominent lately. But the idea that Aokiji is potentially still like an undercover agent of the Revolutionary Army. So I think that would be really fucking cool. I like the idea. I hope it happens. I feel like Aokiji is an infinitely more fitting number two than Sabo. Um, Because let's say even if you think Sabo's cool, right? Like Sabo's great or whatever, right? Uh, at best, right? Even if you're the biggest Sabo fan in the world, you probably scale him at best to like Admiral level, right? Whereas Aokiji is straight up like not just like he's solidly solid, like he's basically equal to Akainu, right? Like that's Aokiji's level, right? To me, that's what you want out of a number two from an army that's trying to take down the whole world government, right? Sabo to me, like I don't even want to go where I scale Sabo off of because I don't see like to me Sabo's feats are just non-existent whatsoever, and his ability set is relatively weak, which is just good armament hockey, um, but obviously outclassed by literally all advanced Conquerors hockey users and other probably better armament hockey users. Um, you could argue Sabo's at like towards the peak of armament hockey, right? But it's still not top tier or whatever. And then his elemental ability is just fire, which I say just fire because fire is a very, very commonplace ability in One Piece. Like almost everyone and their mother can use some variation of fire, right? So at this point in the story, like you want to have some sort of special ass fire if you want to compete, you know. And like characters have so many counters to like at this point, fire is really not a big thing in One Piece. Like Luffy literally doesn't even bother blocking Boro Breath at this point. He literally just tanks it and keeps punching, you know? And this was Luffy before he reached the Yonko level. Like, this was just like Luffy post Udon training, right? You know? Zoro can cut fire, Kinemon can fucking cut fire. Like, fire is just not portrayed to be that significant in One Piece anymore, and so many characters have some level of fire technique. So I'm just like, Sabo doesn't have that good of an elemental Logia at this point in time by One Piece scaling standards and he's just a really good armament hockey user beyond that. And his best feat is basically stalling an admiral who is really, really holding back and not trying to win, right? So that doesn't tell us that essentially puts Sabo at first mate level, you know. Um, Prophet Glutton says the fuck Sabo does have feats, yeah, but he has no good feats. I guess what I mean, like no feats that put him at admiral level, because again, the feat that he does have is that he can stall an admiral who is not trying at all, which puts Sabo definitively below admiral level. I don't think anybody thinks Sabo's equal to Fujitora or anything like that, right? Um, yeah, Sabo will fight Green Bull. Yeah, that's been a theory of mine for some time. I think that's Sabo's final opponent. There's a lot of parallels between the two, and in terms of chapter portrayal, like when Green Bull pops up, when Sabo pops up, things like that. Um, So that's the other thing. Piano Tensei says, bro, Sabo's going to be strong enough to defeat Akainu. Of course, he's not as strong now, but he will be. I think a lot of Sabo rating is based on where people think he will end up. I don't think Sabo is going to defeat Akainu. So I think, yeah, I just think a lot of it's based on like projection. So I think a lot of people view Sabo as basically Ace's reincarnation, practically. Not literally, but like, I think a lot of people view Sabo as like a way for Ace to live vicariously through like to have Ace survive vicariously through that character and get the run back against Akainu. I think that's how a lot of people view Sabo because um, Ace was a phenomenally popular One Piece character. Like so many people still had Ace as their favorite character years after he died. Ace still ranks really high among popularity polls and stuff like that. Ace was just a really popular One Piece character. Ace died, people hate so much Akainu hate comes from the fact that he killed Ace. And a lot of people call bullshit on Magma beats fire. A lot of people are still upset about how that whole fight went. I think a lot of Sabo fans view Sabo as like the new Ace, his own thing, obviously, but like a way to see a run back of that matchup, and they want to see Sabo beat Akainu. I just don't think that that's really what Sabo's character is made to be about. I think if Oda was planning that, he would have just made Sabo a fucking Conqueror's hockey user. Um, but yeah. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. Maybe it's not entirely where the One Piece is, but when. Roger was too early, and Emu hunts the D-Clan to stop a fate destined for the right era. I don't want to talk about that because I have my own theory about that I think is a pretty big one that I am going to save for later. But I do agree that there is some truth to that. Okay, Razor's asking how much time until he reacts to the episode. All right, here is where we get to the difficult discussion. So, as we can all tell, the stream quality is not at its best, largely because my main laptop that I normally use for streams is not currently functioning. I need to get it to get fixed or buy a new one. So I'm using the bad laptop at the moment. My fear is that if I try to, because we've already lost the mic, right? So the stream can only handle so much. My fear is that if I try to react to the episode right now, we could have some issues. I have a proposal for you all. You all can decide. I don't want you all to feel like Morj tricked us out of watching an episode or something. I legitimately worry that the stream will not be able to handle it. I'm down to try, but at the same time, I could do because next Monday's stream, I would definitely like everyone's hyped over 11:44. Everyone's hyped over the next episode from all the discussion that I see online. What I could do is I could react to this episode and 11:44 next Monday when I have the laptop, the good laptop working, and we have our usual stream quality. So that's a proposal I'm laying out for you all. I'm sorry, this is out of my hands. This is God's what do you call act of God. But this laptop is not working right now. It's just giving me the startup PC could not start up properly type of thing. Okay, so I'm gonna try to do my things to fix it, but really I'm gonna take it to somebody else tomorrow to fix it. And I'm down to react to both episodes next Monday. I would probably title it episode 1144 reaction because that'll be the hype one, but I can react to both episodes next Monday. So that's an option. JP, thanks for the 10. For Aokiji being hunted by Ohara specifically and not finding answers in the Marines, why would he join? For Aokiji being haunted by Ohara specifically and not finding answers in the Marines, why wouldn't he join the Forest Dragon Maid for the same 2 points? Also, Dragon flanked by fire and ice is dope. That's actually a really good. Holy shit! JP, that's actually a really fucking cool point you just made. Dragon being flanked by fire and ice. That would be so sick. And also, this plays into my little fantasy or whatever of the the battle coming down to what do you call? Oh shit! Would that mean that then Dragon fights Akainu and because I don't think, but would that mean Dragon fights Akainu and then like um Sabo fights Green Bull, like I imagine, and Aokiji fights Kizaru? Because that would be fucking insane. Shit, this has got all my matchup ideas in a twist. Because I really thought Dragon would fight Garling, but Dragon versus Akainu just does also seem fated to a degree. They're the same age and everything. That fire and ice thing is a really cool idea. And so anyway, addressing the rest of your comment, JP, Aokiji being haunted by Ohara, not finding answers in the Marines. Why wouldn't he join the Force Dragon Maid for the same 2 points? I'm not saying Aokiji did join the Revolutionary Army. However, um, Aokiji, I think there's a big jump from one being in the Marines, right? So you're in the Marines, right? So you're helping the world government to then trying to become Fleet Admiral of the Marines so that you can kind of try and change. Like, Aokiji up to Marine Forward, he obviously had problems with the Marines, but nothing insane, right? He was still part of the force and doing stuff. He was still fighting on the Marine side during Marine Forward. No one got the sense that he was like emotionally really conflicted during Marine Forward or anything, right? He was just starting to see things a little bit differently, probably from post Enies Lobby, right? And he still wanted to be in the Marines. Like, he was trying to become a Fleet Admiral, right? And then he couldn't become Fleet Admiral, and it's implied that he left the Marines because he just thought that Akainu's route with the Marines would just be too absolute justicey and not the principles that Aokiji agreed with, right? I think there's a huge gap between like um, I'm a Marine and I'm doing Marine things um, to uh, how do I say like the furthest other end of the spectrum is becoming a revolutionary, which is like I'm just going to tear the whole system down and dedicate my entire life to it. I'm basically dedicating my life to a war against the Marines, right? I think that's a very wide spectrum, right? I think Aokiji going from here to all the way over here is pretty extreme based on his character that we saw. I'm not saying it's out of the question. I think it's entirely likely, right? I think it's entirely possible. But I'm just saying that the more organ or the more simple route that it seems like things might be going is something like on paper is like Aokiji was already having some qualms about being part of the Marines, and then once Akainu was presented as like the new direction of the Marines, Aokiji was like, okay, that's just too much for me. His ways are too extreme. I can't do that. I'm either going to be in charge or I'm going to leave, right? So I think there's a big jump from like I'm going to leave the Marines to I'm going to go to war against the entire Marines, and like I'm going to take down the whole world government and just lead a whole worldwide revolution. I think that's a very, very big, like it's just all the way the other end of the spectrum. So I don't think it's as simple as like Aokiji had some issues with the Marines, but not enough for him to quit. He wasn't going to quit ever. He didn't quit until Akainu was going to take in charge, and then like, Aokiji was like, now it's a bit now I don't like what now it's too uncomfortable for me. I'm gonna leave, right? So I'm just saying I know I'm repeating myself quite a bit here, but if you get what I'm saying, like if the next step over from like I don't want to be a Marine is leaving the Marines, I think you got to go like 50 more steps to be like a revolutionary um, part of a rebellion and everything like that, right? It's like there's a reason there's so few characters in the Revolutionary Army. Like even characters that don't like the Marines and want to quit them, like even characters that dislike the world government, dislike the Marines, etc. Even they're not becoming revolutionaries. Like Mihawk's not a revolutionary and he hates the Marines. Like Crocodile's not, and he doesn't like the world government and everything. Like almost nobody really joins. Like that's really pretty extreme. Most people that don't like the Marines are just like, well, I'm gonna do my own thing, or fuck it, I'll be a pirate and do my own thing. But like the revolutionaries, they're like the radical, like in the context of the One Piece world, like they're the radical far end of the spectrum people, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying that it's. I think it's entirely possible Aokiji joined the Marines in secret, and I would love to see the flashbacks that led him to that decision. Sorry, Aokiji joined the revolutionaries in secret, and I'd love to see what led him to that decision. But I'm just saying, like, going from like I want to be like the head of police, right? Essentially, let's pretend the Marines are police. They're not really police, but let's pretend, right? Going from I want to be head of police or like I want to be the next general of the army to being like, well, if I can't be the next general of the army, then like I'm just gonna fucking burn down the whole government and the entire military. That's like a really big jump. You get what I'm saying? So that's the only reason I have like question marks about Aokiji joining the revolutionaries. Um, but yeah, I think it'd be cool. I think that's the cooler storyline. I just don't know. Ahmed Boo says, I think it's Fujitora versus Green Bull in the final war. My only thing with that is like, I just don't know if that's a matchup anybody will care about because one, it's already something that kind of has happened, right? And two, it's kind of like Green Bull. I don't think people would find it exciting to see Fujitora fight Green Bull necessarily. Whereas I think people would find it really exciting to see some other character, like one of our protagonist type figures, fighting Green Bull as like a bad admiral. Like an admiral is a fun matchup that you want to see a character you like get to have. Obviously, people like Fujitora, but like Fujitora Green Bull already feels like it's kind of just like checking off two characters. Whereas like getting to see Fujitora fight someone like Kizaru or something, now that becomes a really exciting, spicy matchup. Like imagine getting to see Sabo fight Green Bull or like Kobe fight Green Bull. Like that becomes more exciting for a character that's like up and coming, like one of our younger protagonist type figures getting the challenge of fighting an admiral. I think that that might be a bit more exciting. But that's not great reasoning. Obviously, it's entirely possible Oda has Fujitora fight Green Bull because they've been portrayed as parallels for a lot of the story. I'm just saying in terms of like where I think it might go for more exciting setups. Der Boppler, thanks to two. Is Shape of God Valley a reference to Ace and Blackbeard's clash? I never thought about that, but that's yeah, maybe there's an argument for that. Yeah, just like the two sides. So let me do the poll about the episode thing. Let me do a poll about the episode thing. Are people okay? Well, instead of doing a poll, because I feel like poll might slow it down, are people okay? Is anybody very upset if I do the episodes back to back next Monday? It'll just be better quality, better viewing experience, and I'm legitimately worried that the stream might not be able to handle it. And I know 11:44 is the more hyped up episode people are excited about. Henchme976 says if Luffy gets Emu, then Zoro gets Garling. That's the rule. Dragon could have Workery. Zoro getting Garling would be really cool. I think that'd be a fucking awesome matchup. It's just that Venus Juro's right there, so it's like it feels like if Zoro's gonna fight a Gorosei, then Venus Juro makes sense. But at the same time, historically, Zoro fights the number two of the main villain, right? Historically, I don't think there's. I think there hasn't been an arc out of the arcs where everybody gets fights. I think there hasn't been an arc where that has not happened. Egghead, duh, Egghead that didn't happen. But Egghead, you could argue, Egghead's a complicated one. But yeah, Egghead Zord fought Lucci, who's like 15 spots down the ladder. Outside of that, though, like in Wano, Zoro fights King. Technically, Pika, I guess in the context of the Dressrosa arc, Oda fought the villain's number one subordinate, which was now Pika. But in the grand scheme of things, it was Virgo. Amartya Sinha says Zoro didn't fight Big Mom. Yeah, I don't mean, I don't know what I said exactly, but I don't mean Zoro fights the second strongest. I meant Zoro fights the bad guy's number two, right? So the second strongest of the main villain. So that's consistent. Also, Zoro technically did fight Big Mom for a little bit, but um, yeah, like if the main villain has a number one subordinate, Zoro pretty much always fights them. The Virgo Pika situation seems like the exception. Hachi was also, you're right, Hachi was another notable exception. So it's not constant. It's just the usual rule. Arlong Park, you could argue, was an exception because Zoro was so injured in Arlong Park that Oda couldn't reasonably have him fight the number two. Um, Whereas in the final war, we assume Zoro will be at full health, but I don't know. Knut Worgen says Garling and Dragon are already being tied to each other in God Valley. Yeah, and Zoro and Venus Juro already had a little bit of stuff going on. Um, yeah, it would just be cool though. To me, it's interesting because it's like, wait, but then is Dragon fighting? Who the fuck is Dragon fighting? I don't know. Prophet Glutton says crazy that Oda had Sanji fight the first and second strongest with Dofi and Virgo. I don't think we count like what do you call just like I think we're talking about like just straight like taking it all the way, to the finish because otherwise Zoro gets to fight the strongest like pretty frequently in a lot of arcs like Arlong, NL, Lucci. This is all pre-time skip. Um, Arlong, NL, Lucci, Buggy, Morgan. What's funny is that pre-time skip, actually an interesting little trend. Pre-time skip, Zoro did get to fight the main guy a lot, um, but it usually wouldn't go well. Morgan was the exception because that's like Zoro's introduction. Morgan was the exception, but outside of that, it usually didn't go too well. Lots of times there's mitigating circumstances, like against Arlong, but other times he's just straight up losing, like Lucci and Enno. Post time skip, Zoro gets to fight the main boss pretty frequently again, but now it's usually good showings. So, Horty, obviously, Zoro got the first W on Horty. Again, Horty's not in his strongest form this time. And then Kaido is obviously the big memorable one where Zoro got to actually scar him and everything. Um, yeah, so don't know if actually not enough examples to say there's any sort of trend. But I'd say over the course of the story, Zoro does get to fight the boss pretty frequently. It's just to varying degrees of effectiveness. Amartya Senna says Garling fights Law. Lol. Oh my god, that would actually break my heart. If I gotta watch Zoro and Sanji fight like fucking Venus, Juro, and Mars, while Law takes down fucking Figarland Garling, a dude who might be like at least like Yonko level plus or some shit like that, who's like the number two most important villain, I guess, or number three after Emu and Blackbeard, who the strongest Gorosei, Law without Conqueror's Eye, I don't know. I don't even know. Garling kills Rayleigh and Law avenges him by beating Garling, peak writing. Oh, god damn. Garling killing Rayleigh would be crazy. That'd be crazy. Knut Organ says in Skypea, Wiper fought the number two. No, Ohm was the number two. Ohm was the number two. Shura was number three. Is it worse than Luffy and Kid team up versus Emu? Okay, if I had to vote right now, if we see Law versus Garling or Luffy and Kid team up versus Emu, I would prefer to see Luffy and Kid team up versus Emu because to me that means that that Kid might have become a much better character or something like that, and like we see a whole new side of him by that point in time if he's being elevated because he has to have for Kid to make any sort of resurgence and like for Kid to come back in the story, it would now have to come with significant character growth, right? Because he just got fucking crushed, right? So might be a more likable version of Kid. And two, we know that ultimately it's going to come down to Luffy doing the finishing stuff versus Emu, which is all I really care about. Law fights Doflamingo Seraphim. Oh, that's interesting. My question becomes like, who does Sanji fight if they fight the Seraphim? Because like people have been pointing out that look, if we do the Strats versus the Seraphim, Sanji versus Doflamingo Seraphim, I think a Doflamingo Seraphim, because you're taking like a character that's like Yonko 2, Yonko 3 type level, right? And you're essentially merging him with King, right? Who's a first mate level character, because you're giving him all of King's Lunarian abilities. So like, if you combine Doflamingo and King, and then on top of that, you just make him giant size, so you make him like 10x bigger or something like that. To me, that's like an Admiral level character, because way like Doflamingo with like 10x the physical stats, 10x, 50x the durability, magma powers, king's powers, etc. All of that, plus his own fighting abilities. I think that's pretty good. But it's a fair point to argue that, like, well, he would be so much weaker than the Mihawk Seraphim, like, it'd be a huge gap, that that doesn't seem right. Like, on paper, it seems like fine for a Sanji final opponent. Like, if you told me Sanji's final opponent is like an Admiral level fighter, I'd be like, yeah, that feels perfectly solid. Um, and that could still make Sanji Yonko level. Sanji usually wins his fights by a good margin, right? So Sanji beating an Admiral level character, medium high difficulty, I think that's what I kind of envision for Sanji's final fight. But then Zoro getting to fight like a stronger version of Mihawk, that would kind of just leave Sanji way in the dust, and I don't think Oda's ever going to do that. Maybe it's a version of Crocodile. Some people have talked about that. Because then Sanji gets his Mr. Prince run back or whatever. That'd be kind of cool. Sanji fights. Because maybe Crocodile's way stronger now. Who knows? Crocodile might even be a Conqueror's Haki user for all we know. The last big thing when considering like final endgame story matchups is just that the thing that nobody can account for is characters that we don't even know exist yet. You know? Like, on both sides. Because Loki was just introduced as a character, and now it's like, fuck, is Loki supposed to get some significant matchup? But then on the other side of things, it's like Garling was just introduced recently as like a really significant fighter, you know, and promoted to Gorosei and everything. And it's like, fuck, that's a huge new matchup to account for. And then Shamrock was just introduced, right? So we don't know when we're at the final list of villains or protagonists. Fooly Cooley says Crocodile versus Robin makes more sense. Yeah, I agree. And people were pointing out that like Logia can't clone the Vegapunk can't clone the cannot clone the Logias. So Robin versus Crocodile becomes way more doable for her. Bismuth says, Morj, I do think you're underestimating how strong the Strats will get. Just story drama wise, the end of story battle should wildly outplace even God Value. That's how power scaling inflation is. I agree to a degree, but from my perspective, it's like I think the Strats will pass up the Roger Pirates pretty clearly. But I don't think the Straw Hats end of story will be stronger than like the Rocks Pirates, for example, because like that's just kind of absurd, right? Because like let's say like Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, that's a given, right? They're super strong at the end of the story. But then the Rocks Pirates as a whole is like you get past the top three, and then you're at fucking like Big Mom, Silver Axe, like shit like that, you know? Young Kaido. Like I don't think it's possible for any singular crew to become as strong as the Rocks Pirates, and that's kind of what made the Rocks Pirates who they were, you know? Like a crew that's almost so big, it's like the Titanic. It's like doomed to crash. The Roger Pirates I view as like the strongest a crew that actually has like stability, structure, loyalty, a captain that they believe in, etc. A crew that's actually cohesive. Like Rocks doesn't even treat his crew like a crew. He's like, we're all gonna team up for this one big thing. Like that's what he says at the start of the battle, right? So it's like it's the strongest crew just by sheer fact that it breaks the rules of what a crew can be. So I imagine the Strahd Pirates will surpass the Roger Pirates because that's kind of the ceiling we had so far in terms of like realistic crews that could exist. But the Rocks Pirates, I think, are supposed to be like represent an amalgamation that doesn't even make sense, and so it just would implode on its own, you know? Um, like if Luffy were to assemble a crew with like so many fucking Conqueror's Haki users, it just wouldn't work. Kind of like the Rocks Pirates, you know? Whitebeard even comments on that. Um, it's kind of like here's how I think about it. I view the Rocks Pirates as like I view the Roger Pirates as like the KD Warriors or like the 96 Bulls or something. It's like, holy shit, look at all the legends on this team, right? Like Jordan, Pippen, like Jordan the GOAT, right? Pippen, greatest number two ever. Dennis Rodman, legendary number three, right? Um, that like a 96 Bulls type team. That's the Roger Pirates. Or like the KD Warriors, like a team that's just really fucking stacked across the board. Like just a really, really strong team, right? Or the the Miami Heat. I guess they never really reached that level, but you know what I mean. Like let's say the '96 Bulls or something. The Rocks Pirates I view as like legitimately an NBA All Star team, right? Like legitimately, it's like we take all the best players in the West or in the East and put them on one team, right? It's like the Dream Team or something like that, or the Olympic Squad or something. It's not an organic crew. Like that's not. It's kind of like you don't even count. Like you guys are like your own thing. Does that make sense? Like that's kind of how I view it. Yeah, Rocks Pirates are just like an absurd amalgamation. It's kind of like because literally the Rocks Pirates are. It's funny how well this lines up to the NBA. The Rocks Pirates are literally composed of a bunch of captains. It's literally a bunch of captains, right? Like these are all characters that would be the star player of their own team or the captain of their own crew in One Piece terms, right? It's the same way that the NBA All Star game. It's composed of like, well, what if we took like the captain, like the best player of all these teams, right? And we had, you know, LeBron on the same team as Jokic and who all is in the West? Jokic and Anthony Edwards and Steph and KD. Like they're all like all these people who should be captains or like sorry the best like star players of their own team. They're all on one team now, right? That's what the Rocks Pirates are. It's composed of a bunch of like it's a crew composed of people who all should have their own crews, who are all captains of their own legendary crews, you know? Royalty says Rocks Pirates greater than Akatsuki. So you know what's crazy is like I watch Naruto kind of like with a big gap in my viewing experience because like I watched all of part one, loved it. This was when I was young. Then I took a solid break and I didn't revisit Naruto for a long time. I shit you not, the chapter that I returned back to reading Naruto for absolutely no fucking reason at all. There wasn't any there was nothing I saw or read or YouTube videos or whatever. I didn't used to watch like videos covering like anime stuff or anything like that. Okay, randomly at some point later in life when I was a teenager, I was like, because I was reading on mangareader.net or whatever the fuck I used to read on. And like I would always read the One Piece chapters and the Bleach chapters and Fairy Tail and Kenichi, but those came out on different days. One day when I was reading One Piece and Bleach, I felt like just checking in on what's going on with the latest Naruto thing because I was just curious. And I shit you not, I opened it up. The chapter that I dropped back into Naruto on was the chapter where Naruto arrives at the end and sees he has just arrived at a destroyed Konoha. It either ends with him arriving there, or I think the chapter opens with him having arrived at a destroyed Konoha. But that's literally the starting point. That's where I picked up Naruto, and I was just like, "Holy shit! Naruto looks badass now. What's the setup? Why's he got these giant ass frogs?" And from then, I just started following the rest of the fight weekly. Um, so I got to experience out of fucking thin air Naruto versus Pain, and I was just like, holy shit, this is fucking cool. Um, but that meant that there was a big gap in my knowledge in between. What happened in between with Naruto, I knew there was some stuff because like I'd see like anime clips, I think, once in a while out of curiosity, but I really didn't keep up with Naruto pretty much at all. And so over time, I would go back and like in bits and pieces understand the middle ground section of what happened with Naruto. But essentially, what happened is I watched all part one, big gap, became a manga reader starting literally from from the Naruto versus Pain, and reading on. And then I kind of had to fill in the gaps for myself of what happened in the middle by going back to watch some YouTube videos, like just random fight videos. So the whole Akatsuki section of the story, with Akatsuki being like the iconic villain group of the series, that whole section of the story, I don't really know that much. It's also why I don't like the character Itachi like everybody does, because uh, I missed his whole fucking character section. You know, no Jiraiya versus Pain. Yeah, I ended up watching that through bits and pieces later, just because I was curious. But I didn't have all of the emotional flow going into it. So for me, watching Jiraiya versus Pain, I didn't find it the most exciting fight because I was actually like I'd already read Naruto fighting Pain, which is a much more epic, big scale fight. Jiraiya fighting Pain, I was actually just like I came away from it feeling like Jiraiya is not that strong because I was kind of waiting for him to bust out really cool shit. Instead, he had these two frogs on either side. He did one like giant Rasengan, which I don't like. I feel that's pretty standard or whatever. I was waiting for him to do some crazy techniques, but that never really came. So I was kind of just like, I didn't find it to be that exciting. And I'd missed the whole emotional segment. I did end up through bits and pieces learning more about just the Pain trio, Nagato trio. Oh no, that's because the flashback even happened during not like after when Nagato's talking to Naruto. Maybe I'm mixing things up, but I got a lot of the pieces, just not in good order. So I'm not the best judge of Naruto. Kingling Demi-Human says, that's crazy, bro. You really can't criticize Naruto anymore. Here's the thing. I pretty much never criticized Part 1 Naruto. I don't think... Can anyone recall any point in... I do criticize Naruto a lot, but I don't criticize the sections of the story that I didn't read. I criticize the Fourth Ninja War arc. And I feel like I have grounds to criticize the Fourth Ninja War because I'm invested in Naruto at that point. It just made me fall off because I loved Naruto versus Pain. I still think Naruto versus Pain peak shonen writing, and I think it's peak shonen writing without me even having fucking read the rest of the Pain Invasion arc. Like I skipped all of that. I just went into the fight, and I think it's a phenomenal fight, not just because of the way the fight played out with so much. Like it's a Naruto versus Pain is like to me peak ninja fighting in Naruto before it gets too DBZ. It has some DBZ, but like you see the full repertoire of jutsus used because Pain has so many jutsus at that point, but Naruto's no slouch either. Now he's really good in hand to hand. He's really good with summoning, right? So he's got the frogs coming in and doing things, and then he's got a nicer variety of Rasengan techniques and things like that, and he's of course got a shadow clone. So it's a very varied fight. So I love that fight. And the really cool thing about Naruto versus Pain is that, from my experience, you don't need any. You actually don't need any lead up to find it really fucking exciting if you've watched part one. Because the biggest thing about Naruto that makes it such a compelling story is that it's the story of an outcast, right? It's the story of a boy that's shunned by the emotional compelling components to me early on. It's the story of an outcast, the story of a boy who is shunned by the village, grows up hated, feared, bullied, and he all his drive earlier on is just that he wants to be acknowledged by the people of his village, right? That's all he wants, and you see that play out through all of part one, right? You could like I'm not saying you should skip it, right? Obviously, the correct way is to read the whole story, but I'm just saying I finished part one. The next time I drop into the story is at that fight, and that fight is the moment where at least that aspect of Naruto's full emotional journey comes full circle and reaches its conclusion. Because this is the moment that like this village that ostracized him, hated him, turned him into like this outcast and everything like that. They are absolutely helpless on the brink of destruction, and you see Naruto rolling in like an absolute badass, flanked by these giant toads and everything like that. And they are all suddenly having to pin their hopes on him. That is such a cool feeling. And especially like the Tsunade moment where he stops immediately one shots one of the bodies from attacking Tsunade, and he's telling Tsunade, you just go sit back and have some tea. Like it's literally picking up from like part one threads of like Tsunade talking down to Naruto, and so obviously he impressed her back then, but back then he was the little kid, then she was like the person who's now the new Hokage and everything like that, right? You just go back to their interactions from back then, and you're getting the full circle thing now. You got Sakura, who used to think Naruto was dog shit back in the day. She's yelling for his help. Like the whole like everything from part one, just emotionally for him, I feel like comes through in that pain fight for what that means, and that's why they're all fucking cheering and everything for him at the end. I still felt maybe not the same level of emotion as every Naruto fan who got to read the whole middle section, but it really did feel like I'm getting to see the perfect conclusion to this character's emotional journey right there, right? Um, so I love the pain fight. The pain fight, phenomenal. I don't know that much about what happened all in the in between. My critiques of Naruto, because I'm invested in Naruto after that, and I read the Five Kage Summit. I'm actually pretty hyped about it. Um, my critiques of Naruto came as the story continued to progress, and I was hyped about the Fourth Great Ninja War. I found it really fucking difficult to read through. Really fucking difficult. And it's not like these are characters I don't give a shit about. I fucking watched part one. So, when I'm seeing like Choji and them like have their fights or whatever, and Zabuza come back and everything, like these are things that are connecting back to things that I am familiar with. Um, it's just the fucking Ninja War felt like a fucking slog. It felt like a real slog. So I feel like I can criticize the Ninja War because I went in with an open mind. Most of these characters are characters I'm familiar with. A lot of these characters I like. It's just I feel like it was more so the structure and the pacing of the entire thing that did not hit for me. And I'd say the biggest thing, because now I'm really reminiscing on it, is that Naruto, for him as a character, his emotional journey that we were hooked on from the beginning, it did conclude with the pain fight, which is he wants to be acknowledged by the village. The pain fight is the moment that he is coming through, saving the village, essentially playing the role of Hokage, even though he doesn't have it yet. He's playing the role of Hokage. Everybody views him as the village savior now, and everybody in the village acknowledges him. So it brings that full circle. What happens next with the Fourth Great Ninja War is now it's like, because Kishimoto has talked at length about how he didn't have most of Naruto planned. He just didn't. He didn't have a lot of it planned. He didn't have fucking Sasuke planned from the beginning, right? But now the Fourth Great Ninja War, so you've concluded Naruto's emotional journey as a character. I'm not saying you've completed his character growth or whatever, but you've concluded the gripping part of his emotional journey that gets people invested early on. Like, what gets people invested in Naruto? The fucking Naruto on a swing by himself. That's why they fucking play that scene so much, right? I know it becomes a meme, but that's the feeling that Naruto aims to evoke as a story early on. Like, the feeling of being an outcast. You've covered that. Naruto's now beloved. He's a hero. He has fucking Sakura throwing herself at him at this point, like some sort of like wish fulfillment fantasy or something like that. He's got everything, like all of that. But now the story's not over. That's the thing. You've concluded the character's biggest emotional need or whatever that got readers hooked. But now you have to wrap up all the fucking plot threads, and a lot of other characters' character arcs are still yet to be concluded. So now it's more so like opening up this new avenue for Naruto's growth, which is like he's trying to find a way to stop the cycle of hate. And that's solid. I think that's as far as things Kishimoto could have gone with. I think that's solid. And it plays into how Naruto as a character, his journey has been so far. Like, you can joke about talking no jutsu, but like, as a character, he has always been about trying to connect, right? Like, you go back to fucking Naruto versus Gaara, and Naruto was able to find a connection with Gaara after giving him an ass kicking and everything like that. That's what he's been trying to do with Sasuke, right? Like Naruto wants to end the cycle of yada yada, right? I think that's a solid thing to continue on as Naruto's main goal for the final war. But I would argue that it just doesn't have to me as emotionally compelling. Like that's a philosophical ideological thing that you're now having Naruto focus on. But for me, the concept of the character that like I fell in love with at the beginning was simply like this kid that is just an outcast, and his pain that I'm feeling that's got me really invested in his story and that gets me pumped every time I see him like prove people wrong is that they all view him a certain way, and he's going to force them to acknowledge him and respect who he is as a person. I find that to be a very compelling story, and that's kind of what Naruto's main centric focus was at the beginning, and that gets wrapped at the pain arc. You see what I'm saying? Um, Naruto already realized his goal after the pain arc, says Ichi. I do think Kishimoto finds a logical, naturally transit like continuing goal for him because again, it's not like something totally random. Like Naruto decides that you know what, I think my next thing that I'm really gonna focus on now that I've fulfilled this big character need of mine is like economics, solving like the economic state of the ninja world or something like that, right? It's consistent with his character in that Naruto as a character has throughout the story really been about trying to connect with and understand his opponent, be that Gaara, be that Neji, be that Sasuke, etc. Right? Um, uh, Even with pain, right? So continuing that into like Naruto trying to solve the cycle of hatred, I think that's solid. But I'm just saying that in terms of just straight up, like, why do most people feel emotionally connected to the story of Naruto early on? It is Naruto. It is Naruto's pain, right? It is Naruto's pain at the beginning of the story, right? And that pain is resolved during the fucking pain arc because Kishimoto knew what he's doing with that. I think that's a phenomenal shonen storytelling arc. Okay, um, I think that that's one of the things I like about One Piece a lot. Oda's plan so much to like we hop on Luffy's train, right? Because his dream is to become Pirate King, find the One Piece. That's what he's about. Um, and now we've realized that there's more to his dream, but the extra layer to his dream is stuff that's already been being dropped for a long time, and we already have come to understand that there's more that Luffy cares about than just becoming Pirate King, and we've seen a lot of his values and everything. So um, it feels like whatever the full, complete motivation Luffy has is still going to be organic to him wanting to become Pirate King and become the freest person. See what I'm saying? I think Oda's evolution of his ideas, which is like, one, I just want to find the One Piece and become Pirate King. Two, what does Pirate King mean? It means being the freest in the seas. Three, why do you want to be the freest? It's because I live in a world where so much bad shit happens. I lost my brother when I was a child. Now I lost my second brother when I'm an adult. I don't want to lose any of my friends. I want to just be free from all of this oppression, suffering, etc. I want to be free so that the people around me don't have to worry. I can protect them, right? All of it's like building organically. And then now there's one final aspect of this whole dream that we still need to understand. Um, anyway, anyway. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna reread Naruto. I'm just not gonna. Especially because from a lot of what I hear, that middle-ish portion of Naruto leading up to the pain arc is not that strong. That's from what I've heard. Like a lot of people who are big Naruto fans, from what I've seen online discourse, people love part one, and then when it comes to the Shippuden, the part that people really gas up is like the pain arc. A lot of people consider that to be the peak of Naruto. Most people don't really hype the fourth Ninja War, And then that in between section, I don't really hear that much hype about. One of the reasons I did not bother trying to keep up with with Shippuden was because I cheated a bit. When I finished part one, I wasn't fully trying to get into Shippuden, although I was kind of excited for it. But like, I did peek ahead a little bit to see like some of Naruto's fights later on YouTube. Um, and it was fucking lame as fuck. Because, like, he had trained for, like, God knows how long, and he came back with, like, a bigger Rasengan, and that's it. And it just felt really underwhelming. I was kind of like, what really cool fights does Naruto have in part two? And I was just going through the anime a little bit, and it was nothing. So I just didn't feel compelled to get back into the story, because I'm like, I love seeing this character fight. I love this character. I love seeing this character fight. I love his fight with Neji and with Gaara. Those are two of my favorite anime fights ever. Um, yeah, and I'm just fucking seeing on YouTube that there's nothing interesting happening for the character. Keep in mind, I'm young. I'm in middle school. Okay, so I'm seeing that there's nothing cool happening fight wise for this character in the future. So I kind of just like I'm not really interested in following Naruto again for whatever. And then one day I'm randomly picking up the manga, and then I'm seeing in the manga, oh shit, Naruto's badass. This is what I wanted to see. You know, that's it. Oh, audio? Oh fuck. I mean, I don't know the fix for this. I can't actually fix it because we're already not using the good mic. We're using the shitty mic. We might have to start wrapping stream. Sorry, y'all. Yeah, Sasuke became absolutely broken. Yeah, I see that audio's bad, but don't know if I can do anything about this at this point. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to wrap it. All right, everybody. I'm sorry about the quality. We will be back on, if not the better laptop, a new laptop next stream. Just had to make do with what I had, which was the shitty laptop. And yeah, thank you all for tuning in. This was fun. We will watch the next episode. We will watch this episode and 1144 next stream. Don't panic. I'm going to title it 1144 reaction, but I will include 1143 in the actual stream when we get to it. So yeah, with that, thank you all for tuning in into this slightly